Today, we're talking Notre Dame. The Bears let one slip. We'll break it down, a little bit of film analysis, some inside stuff you may not know, and we will bring you the scoop coming up right now. Welcome to Bear Insider, Ultimate Insider Podcast. I am Mike Pulaski, Hall of Fame Cal quarterback, and your host here today. We are talking about Bears versus Notre Dame. The Golden Domers were susceptible this year. I know hope springs eternal on Cal's campus, but this year, of all years, Notre Dame was very beatable. And so coming into this game, there was a lot of hope, a lot of high hopes, a lot of big wishes that Cal could get the big win on the road against a program that has the lore, if not the team this year, that would bring you a lot of respect from around the country, even though Notre Dame's not very good, 0-2 coming to this game. And the Bears, quite honestly, let one slip. Now, there was a little help from the officials on this, too. And I know you people at home are kind of thinking that the officials helped out, and they definitely did. We will review that call. It was horrible, truly horrible, to the point that there's got to be something wrong with the official, or, it calls into question integrity, because there's absolutely no chance that there was anything there for him to see as an offsides. But we'll get into that when we get to the film in just a second. I will also talk to Coach today, and we'll get his take on the game, kind of the X's and O's. We'll break it down, the emotions, all of that stuff. I want to start on the defensive side of the ball because I thought the defense played pretty well in this game early on. They played so well, as a matter of fact. Offensive coordinator Tommy Rees, who is a former Notre Dame quarterback, at one point was caught on camera on NBC, absolutely lighting up his quarterback, Drew Pyne. Drew Pyne's first start as part of the Fighting Irish football program, and he was not good. He was very not good, truly bad. He was missing wide open flat routes. You could see he was pulling the string. He was super nervous about making throws. And that coaching staff at 0-2 is feeling the pressure. And so, Tommy Rees on the phone on NBC's cameras was just lighting him up, telling him, look, it's an effing flat route. Do your effing job. Complete it. And as a coach, I totally get where he's coming from. I don't know that it helped Drew Pyne. He made some throws later in the game. He made a tailback seam later in the game. He hit a tight end down the middle later in the game. But he did not have a very good game overall. And so it presented opportunities. The Bears were really good, again, on third down. Remember, they held UNLV, I believe, to 2 for 16 or 2 for 17 last week on conversion downs, third and fourth down. And they actually held Notre Dame to a really low number, like 30%, 33% of third down conversions in this game. So that's a great number for a defense. A couple of big things hurt them. There were penalties. Blake Anzalatis got the roughing the passer, which at the time, when I saw it happen live, I'm like, yep, that is a late hit, no doubt about it. Then when I watched it on film, I thought, maybe it's not, but it's a judgment call, and as a player, you can't allow the officials to have the opportunity to make that call on you. So either way, that's a bad one. There was obviously the penalty on the kick that we talked about that we'll show in just a second here. And there was a celebration penalty after a touchdown. I think it was J. Michael Sturdivant scored on the corner route in the end zone, and he spun the ball in the end zone and did a little dance. And at the time, I didn't see it, but that was definitely a personal foul, definitely a taunting. So, that one was right. The late hit targeting was questionable. Anzalatis will have to miss next week now. The team's already appealed it, and so they don't have a choice. He's going to miss the first half of this week's game coming up against Arizona. Luckily, that's a position that the Bears are very deep, and obviously the field goal there was no offsides about it. And it was the official on the Cal side. I thought maybe if he was official on the Notre Dame side, they're in his ear screaming. Maybe he throws the flag and then doesn't pull it back because of his ego. But it was the guy on the Cal side standing right in front of Coach Wilcox, and the flag was super late. As a matter of fact, it was so late that our radio broadcast, they bring out the timer for the TV. We went to commercial, and we missed the ensuing touchdown on the F seam. So It was really a crazy sequence of events there that led to that Notre Dame touchdown. And that, could that have changed the game? Yeah, it could have been a huge game changer because they missed the field goal. Cal gets the ball back. Maybe they do something with it, maybe they don't. But Notre Dame doesn't get any momentum from going into the end zone or from scoring any points whatsoever. So that is a huge one. But overall, I thought the defense played pretty well, especially early on. I think at the end, Notre Dame started to move them a little bit up front, started to run the ball pretty well. But I think early on, they played well. If the offense could have generated some time of possession to keep that defense off the field, if they could have moved the ball a little bit more than they did, then I think that would have been a much different story in that football game. Quite honestly, as an analyst watching that game, I felt like I came away from that game feeling like if we could have just protected the passer, we would have won that game by 21 points. Because there was some open stuff on the field that Jack Plummer didn't have an opportunity to get to. There were some throws that he could have made. There were some open receivers. There were some matchups that were really beneficial to the Bears. And then Notre Dame was getting home with just 4 rushers. If you can get home with just 4 defensive linemen, 4 rushers, that leaves you 7 guys across the back end to cover in passing downs. You have to be able to, as a football team, either run the ball versus that, because you're going to get what you call split safeties, 2 high safeties, middle field open, all those things describe it, but 2 safeties deep with underneath coverage, 5 guys underneath. And so you're going to spread the box, and if you get the box spread like that with 2 safeties deep, you have to be able to run it. Bears were not very effective running the ball. They hit the counter early on, and they were decent there, but then Notre Dame figured it out, and they plugged it up. The Bears also, because they were not giving Plummer time, weren't able to take advantage of throws downfield. If you just rush 4, you have to give your quarterback a full 3 seconds to figure out where it's open because there's more guys in coverage. And so you have to be able to see downfield. You have to have the time, and you have to have the confidence and comfort of stepping up into a pocket. Bears just didn't allow that. And it was, I'll ask Coach about this later, but to me, there was a lot of technique issues there on the offensive line. It felt like to me, like the game was big, and some of those guys felt like, oh, these guys are so talented, I got to get outside. And we were turning shoulders, we were coming off blocks, we were splitting things that we shouldn't have as an offensive line. And so that has to be cleaned up. You can't go into conference play doing that kind of stuff and expect to win in the Pac-12. It is just not going to happen. That was the biggest piece to me. And Jack Plummer, there's some passes that he wants back, I guarantee. There's some stuff that he should have hit. He missed Jay Knott on the matchup they were looking for against a linebacker on the outside. Needed to give him more air instead of trying to throw a dime ball super flat. Because Jay Knott beat the linebacker, he was there, and if Jack Plummer hits him, that is to the house, first touchdown on the board early, and it would have been a big game starter, momentum shifter in that game right away, put a lot more pressure on Notre Dame and on that offense, which would have helped a lot. So that's a huge one. Jack Plummer should have had that. I thought the running backs did what they could. You can't do a lot without great blocking up front. Again, we'll get back to the offensive line needs to block. They need to be better, period. I like the guys. I love O-liners, but they have to be better up front. They would tell you that after watching film. Notre Dame has some guys that are going to play in the NFL. There's no doubt about it. They have some good football players. But even at that, you're not asking the offensive line to do anything that they shouldn't be able to do. They are Power 5 offensive linemen playing the Pac-12. They should be able to block those guys. And yeah, Notre Dame would have won several of them, but Cal should have won several of them as well, which would have given Plummer time, a little more confidence, a little more comfort, and would have allowed pretty talented wide receiver group to get open downfield. Now that said, with 7 back in coverage, the receivers had a hard time getting off coverage sometimes. They spent some time on the ground getting knocked over, which should not be happening. And they need to do a better job of getting open as well. But it all starts up front. Games are won and lost in the trenches, and the Bears lost the trenches versus Notre Dame overall. And so I think that was the big difference maker. That was the story of this game. Did the officials affect this game? No doubt about it. Officials affected this game. And we'll talk about that as soon as I'm done talking to Coach. But you have to take control of your own circumstances. That is one play. It's a big one. But if you block, if you pass, if you tackle, if you do all those things the way that you're supposed to, the Bears would win that game. And they just didn't quite get that done. That's my take. I had an opportunity to talk to Coach earlier to get his take on this game. and kind of a hard time in the remnants of Notre Dame. Obviously, we always appreciate Coach coming on with us, and we'll look at that right now. Joining me now, head coach Justin Wilcox, off of the disappointing loss at Notre Dame. Obviously a tough one, Coach. You've watched the film now. I watched the film this morning. Tell me your thoughts.
Well, we missed a great opportunity to get a win against a good team. We learned some valuable lessons. Unfortunately, learned them in a loss, and we just have to get, reloaded mentally starting yesterday and get ready for Arizona. Pac-12 play in front of us, and again, there was a lot to learn from the tape, but we got to wash it and move on.
Talk to me about the defense in this game. Early on, really stifled that Notre Dame offense. They couldn't get anything going. It was actually video on TV of Tommy Rees, their offensive coordinator, just absolutely lighting up the quarterback, Drew Pine. What were you guys doing? What was making that possible for the defense to be so effective?
Oh, I thought, the guys played hard. I thought the coaches had a good plan going in, trying to, ultimately we're trying to put the game in the quarterback's hands, and that's easier said than done. They're very, very good up front. They got good play at the line of scrimmage. Early in the game, we're getting off the field on a regular basis, gave up the touchdown before half on the T seam against 3 deep, and then in the second half we gave up a touchdown on the opening drive of the second half for them, which that's second week in a row, so we got to be better there. And we had a couple third down opportunities. We got a critical penalty that resulted in a touchdown for them, and we got to find a way to get a stop early in the second half, and then find another turnover in there, punch the ball out, tip a ball, intercept it. And we had some chances, and we weren't able to capitalize on them. But I thought the effort was good. The third down defense was good again. And they were just leaning on us a little bit in the run game, and we're able to put the ball in the end zone a couple of times. We needed to get one more stop.
And I know that you won't comment on it, and you don't need to comment on it, but people at home would kill me if I didn't comment on it. That phantom kind of offsides on the field goal did not help the cause at all. And we'll just kind of leave it at that for today. How about that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a response for that. I've never seen that before. Yeah, a manufactured call, but at the end of the day, we don't need, I'd like to think that we don't need perfect circumstances in order to win. And we proved that we don't need perfect circumstances in order to give us a chance to win. We got to find a way regardless.
Well, that's exactly it. You're on the road at Notre Dame, right? Fabled program, but you're not playing the logo. You're playing the team that's in front of you. And I thought, physically, they were a very good football team. There's no doubt about it. They were good up front on defense. They were good up front on offense. They had talented players around the board. But offensively, I think this was the most kind of disjointed effort that I've seen out of the Cal offense in a while, just because they couldn't get anything going. Counter started to hit early on, and then they solved that problem. And then couldn't get guys open. We did this for Jack. This was not his best game. He missed some balls that he should have hit, but then he was under pressure a lot as well.
Yeah, I think, what you saw early in the game, we had a couple nice counters that were blocked well and moved it. We're able to get some positive runs. And then ultimately it was the number of negative plays. Zero gains or negative plays. And everybody had a hand in that. Jack had a couple throws that he'd like to have back. I mean, guys that were open, but we also have to do a better job blocking just across the board. We got to block better. I mean, the old adage, it comes down to blocking and tackling, is very true. And we did not block well enough to play good offense throughout the game. We had stretches. We had some good throws and catches. We had some nice runs. DeCarlos gave us a spark. But at the end of the day, we didn't block well enough.
There's no question about it. As a quarterback who played 11 years after college, when you have those games or a couple of games in a row where you just keep getting hit, all of a sudden your steps get shorter, your mechanics are off, and you're not as accurate. That showed up with Jack, but that's a huge byproduct of getting hit, in that UNLV game and then this game again, trying to make something happen without being able to step in. The other thing I thought was unique based on the talent that we have at that receiver position
is that we didn't get a ton of separation, in part due that they were getting home with 4 on the rush so they could keep 7 in coverage. But in part, we just weren't getting separation. Guys were getting bumped and jostled and weren't getting off it. Talk about that.
Yeah, we're on the ground too much and out of our routes too much. The depth or the positioning on where the guy needs to be in the route wasn't where it needs to be. And so we have to be more detailed in coaching them. We have some talented guys there. And then ultimately, if they're going to rush 4 people, we have to hold up long enough for people to get open. So it's a combination. Everybody's involved in that. The receivers getting open and the tight ends getting open. Also the protection of, I think that's probably the biggest difference in that game is their 4-man rush really gave us issues. And so we've got to protect better. So if they're only going to rush 4, that we have to be able to give the passing game some time and rhythm for guys to get open. And so Jack did make some really nice plays on scrambles. I think 3 explosive plays on scrambles. They played some 2-man a couple times and he ended up chasing them down the field. And then one time on a 3 deep, I think, and DeCarlos got a really nice block for him on a 4th and 8. But again, we got to be more efficient in the pass game against 4-man rush.
No doubt about it. And it's probably, this is more of a question for Billy Mush, but we didn't move the pocket. Like we had him back in the pocket and guys with that 4-man rush coming after him, pocket collapsing on him. I know that Jack's not a running quarterback per se, but moving it half rolls kind of changed the launch point. Was that part of the game plan anywhere in there? Was there kind of a consideration for it?
Yeah, we do have that stuff. Again, Bill calls the game. I support him. It's not my area of expertise. We do have pocket movement. We have boots. And in order for that stuff to work, there's other things that have to happen. And so it was a consideration. It's still a consideration. But there are plenty of opportunities in there for us to just block the other guy better. For as many times as maybe we got beat, once in a while, it's like, that the other player's really good. He got the 1-on-1 and he won on that rep, but not at the rate. We have guys that can make those blocks and we have to help them improve there so they can make them, and that we're not having to, always go 2-on-1 everywhere. You just can't do that, because ultimately if you 2-on-1 everywhere, you only got a certain number of guys to run a route.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And you shorten yourself too in terms of what you can do.
Yeah.
Even if you move the pocket, like I was talking about, you shorten the field, you're only playing half the field. But, for me as a quarterback, just kind of getting him some clean launches, in my head, that's what I'm always thinking. How do you get your quarterback settled in? How much of this do you think mentally, emotionally was a big game, big location? And no matter who you are as a player, you tend to get that hype going. How much of it was that is the first part of that question. And the second half of that is with the offensive line kind of where they're at. How do you pull them back emotionally? Because that's the biggest piece. Get them back to understand that they can do this if they just settle into their techniques.
Well, we had examples of that. We showed them clips yesterday when we just play good football and not asking anybody to be superhuman or do something that they cannot do, whether that's on defense, offense, special teams, to execute a technique and do it over and over again. So you show them examples of when they do that and the success that brings. And so that's the first thing. In terms of the environment, I thought the guys handled the environment fine. It was a great environment. I mean, it's a storied stadium. There's a packed house. I mean, it's a great environment, but I didn't get the sense that anybody out there it was too much for them. I mean, I think they just went out there and played football. We just didn't play well enough technically at certain positions. And then we made bad decisions that resulted in penalties that really cost us.
Yeah, and my point was not that it was too much for them, just that sometimes you get that hype going and your technique falls apart because you're thinking, I got to move too fast, right? The game's moving faster based on kind of your surroundings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, there's really no substitute for game day. I mean, we can't, unless we're going to call everybody up and try and get 70,000 people in the stands
right.
for practice. I mean, there's nothing else to do there. I mean, it's muscle memory. It's confidence in yourself and your technique, and having the emotional and mental toughness and focus to just play that play for what it is and don't make it more than that.
Yeah, that's exactly it, right? Just having the trust that your technique works if you execute your technique, super key. Having coached young players myself, like if you can just get them to do what they're supposed to do, it's amazing how it works out more than it doesn't. So talk about, let's put a bow on this. What did you tell the team? What was your explanation to them, and what do you tell them going into Pac-12 play?
Well, we, talk about it is a difficult loss and what we learned from it, and a couple of the things that I said, I thought the guys competed very hard and we had a chance until the final whistle blew. I mean, there was, with 2 seconds left in the game or 5 seconds left, we had a chance to win the game, and the ball went up and we didn't finish it. Now we got to look at the reasons why we didn't get the outcome that we all desired. And so we talked about offensively, the explosion plays. We were, I think, 10-3 explosives on them. Defense, third downs were really good. But at the end of the day, we got to get off the field on defense. We got to find another turnover to create an extra possession, and we have to block better as a football team. And I know that encompasses a lot, but that's the difference. Again, identifying those penalties and talking about those, and we can't make those mistakes and expect to win against a good team. So learn the lessons and then reload mentally and go back to practice, which they did yesterday, and we all did, and move forward. It'd be a shame to not learn anything from a experience like that. So we take the time to do that. But yesterday at practice, they were going and like they always do, but we have to make those improvements.
Yeah, a little emotional maturity is always nice. It's one thing that Cal has the benefit of having, generally speaking, with the players that you get to bring into Cal, is that you have that kind of intelligence, that intuitiveness, that having that emotional intelligence is the way to move forward from something like that. So, well, I appreciate you coming on today, Coach. Obviously disappointing last week, but looking forward to kind of watching this team turn itself around. Like I said, being Cal, having been around this program for a long time, the one thing that you get with really smart players is the ability to flip the switch and turn it.
Absolutely. We're looking forward to it too. Thanks, Mike.
So that was Coach. You can obviously hear the disappointment in his voice, but as always, Bears are going to get back after it, get working on it, and they've got Arizona coming up this week. The offsides penalty. I told you we would look at that film later. Let's take a look at that right now. So imagine this. You line up for field goal block, and it's even field goal safe. It's not really even field goal block. You're only rushing guys in terms of getting there to force the kick, to put a little pressure on him. And nobody jumps. Everybody's lined up clean. And they throw a flag super, super late, by the way. They threw the flag. It wasn't like the flag came out right away. The flag came out super late. And there's nothing there. There literally is nothing there. There's no offsides. Nobody's lined up offsides. Nobody jumped offsides. And the official came back and told Coach Wilcox that Lumagia Hearns was offsides, that he jumped offsides. And there's clearly nothing there. You can look at the film. You can see right there, there is no offsides. That is a clean snap. That is awful. That call is horrible. At that point in the broadcast, I believe I called the official Homer Simpson because it felt like the ACC officials were making Homer calls a lot in this game. And so the problem is when there's nothing there and the flag comes out that late, that the official is manufacturing something. He is making something up. And if he's doing that, there's only a couple of reasons he would do it. Made up something in his head, right? Convinced himself that there was something there. Or there is something untoward going on. You start to worry about the integrity of that call, especially with an ACC crowd. Notre Dame is part of the ACC in every sport except for football. And actually, they have a commitment to play ACC teams when they have holes in their schedule for football. So, obviously, benefiting the ACC benefits Notre Dame in the end when it comes back to the Olympic sports. So, it makes you question what is going on with that official. Is he having some kind of mental problem that he convinced himself that there was something there? Because there clearly was not. Clearly. Or is there an integrity issue for that? We have yet to hear from the ACC officials with an apology. We have yet to hear them take any responsibility for that. I know the official at the game, the head of officials, said they clearly blew that call. But make it public. Do something. I mean, the Bears aren't going to win this game now, but make it public. Anyway, that's my rant. That's the deal. Next week, coming up, University of Arizona it's a big one because it's conference play. Arizona also beatable. They've looked good. They looked good versus San Diego State, not as good versus Mississippi State. And then last week, North Dakota State, hard to tell, FCS opponent. It's a very good FCS opponent, but it's an FCS opponent. You should win that game. So I will bring you a preview of the Cats coming up later on this week. As always, I appreciate Coach Wilcox's time coming here. That's my take on the Notre Dame game, and I look forward to breaking down the Cats coming up soon. I appreciate you guys, as always. Fantastic, and I appreciate you guys being here. For Bear Insider and the Ultimate Insider Podcast, I'm Mike Pulaski. Go Bears.